Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Following Friday's aggressive sell-off, we do have new information to bring you on what could be a stock market crash or a massive buy the dip opportunity via the sell-off that we had on Friday. Now, unfortunately, it sounds like things are not going in the right direction as far as this conflict. Now, it's not past the breaking point. Things could still get better, but as of right now, what China is saying about the US's actions do not sound good, and China does not look like they want to back down here. Now, I do think one off-ramp potentially could be a call between Trump and the Chinese president, if that is even in the cards. But yeah, I don't think markets are going to like this to start off your trading week. Now, also keep in mind, tomorrow the markets will be open on a normal schedule. It's not a short day or anything like that, but the bond market is closed. So yeah, that could make things a little different. Like bank transfers, for an example, are not going to go through tomorrow because it's really a banking holiday. Now, beyond that, we are going to get into some of your Tesla stock news today. There's actually some news that is quite exciting, so we will share that with you. And yeah, get into this market and what could be coming next. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Check that link out down below in the description of today's episode. We made a killing back in April when markets crashed, when most people were panicking. Most people did not capitalize on that opportunity the way that they should have. Well, if we get something like that again, if you are a part of the group, you're going to be able to capitalize on that. As long as you're not super emotional and a crybaby, blah, 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 you should be able to do very well in that situation. If stocks reverse and move higher, you're going to be in a position to win. Either way, come join us if you want to take your investing to the next level, is basically in English what I'm trying to say. That link is down below in the description of today's episode. But with that said, let's get into what the hell China just said about Trump's actions on Friday. So here we have this. It says China defends rare earth export curbs as legitimate, hits back at U.S. tariffs as Trump-Xi meeting hangs in the balance. And honestly, I'm just going to read the whole article because it gives a lot of backstory and a lot of things you need to hear, right? You need to be familiar with this whole story so we know when a pivot is coming, right? So it says China on Sunday defended its new export controls on rare earths as a legitimate measure under international law, pushing back against U.S. accusations of economic coercion after Washington announced sweeping retaliatory tariffs and export restrictions. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce said the controls issued on October 9th were part of Beijing's effort to strengthen its export control system and, quote, better safeguard world peace and regional stability amid what it described as a turbulent global security environment. The measures, which now cover not only rare earth materials but also related intellectual property and technologies, were announced just weeks before a potential meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Quote, these controls do not constitute export bans. Applications that meet the requirements will be approved, a Commerce Ministry spokesperson said. China has fully assessed the potential impact of these measures on the supply chain and is confident that the impact will be very limited. Beijing's new curbs also require foreign entities to obtain a license to export products containing more than 0.1% of domestically sourced rare earths or manufactured using China's extraction, refining, magnet making, or recycling technology. Applications for items that could be used in weapons or other military purposes will be denied. Shortly after Beijing tightened export controls on rare earths, the European Chamber of Commerce in China reported a backlog of export license applications awaiting approval, saying the new restrictions, quote, add further complexity to the global supply chains of rare earth elements. In response to Beijing's move, Trump on October 10th announced new tariffs of 100% on imports from China, quote, over and above any tariff that they are currently paying, beginning November 1st. Trump also said that the U.S. on the same date would also impose export controls on any and all critical software. Stock markets plunged after Trump said on Truth Social that there is no way that China should be allowed to hold the world captive with its rare earth policy, wiping $2 trillion in market value. Trump also said on Friday that there's going to be a period of pain for the U.S. economy. I think that also hits, right? If the president is like, yeah, this is going to be good long term, but could be really bad short term, people, jump to worst case scenarios pretty quickly. It says, quote, the Chinese Commerce Ministry on Sunday local time accused the U.S. of double standards. This is where you get into, this doesn't sound great for getting an off-ramp or preventing these tariffs from going into effect. It says, noting that the U.S. control list covers more than 3,000 items compared to fewer than 1,000 on China's list. China accounts for about 70% of the global supply and has repeatedly used the critical needed materials as a bargaining chip in trade discussions. It says tensions whipsaw. Hours after tightening export controls on rare earths, Beijing also announced that it would start charging U.S. ships docking at Chinese ports from October 14th, mirroring a new U.S. fee on Chinese vessels arriving at U.S. ports, set to take effect the same day. The U.S. accounts for roughly 0.1% of global shipbuilding compared to 53.3% for China, according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies. The Chinese Commerce Ministry defended its reciprocal decisions as, quote, necessary passive defensive actions. It added that the U.S. action seriously undermined the atmosphere of the economic and trade talks between the two sides. Senior U.S. and Chinese officials met for trade negotiations in Geneva in May, the first since Trump launched a global trade war. A follow-up meeting in London in June led to a trade framework, while a third round of high-level talks took place a month later, where both sides signaled progress in negotiations. The most recent trade meetings in Madrid in September yielded, quote, a basic framework consensus on the divestment of Chinese-owned TikTok ahead of a deadline to either sell off its U.S. business or shut down the social media app in the country. On September 19th, Trump and Xi spoke on the phone but did not finalize a deal on TikTok. After the call, Trump announced that he and Xi agreed to meet on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum during the last week of October in South Korea. While China has been silent on future meetings, Trump had also said that he would visit China early next year and President Xi would come to the U.S. at a later date. However, Trump on Friday threatened in a social media post to cancel his upcoming meetings with President Xi after China's latest tightening of export curbs on rare earths. Now we have some other headlines here. It says China signaled that it would not back down in the face of a 100% tariff threat from President Donald Trump. I can't wait to see how Trump responds to this. I mean, I can only imagine the markets are not going to like. China says it will stand firm against U.S. tariffs. Quote, we do not want a tariff war, but we are not afraid of one. Again, not excited to hear what Trump's response is. And again today, China warns U.S. of countermeasures if Trump does not walk back the 100% tariff threat. So China's saying, yep, we're prepared to do other shit to, just ramp things up if you don't walk back the 100% tariff threat. So, yeah. We haven't heard anything from Trump so far on this that I've seen, but I can't imagine Trump's going to have good things to say. Now, I need everyone to understand perfectly and clearly what I'm about to say next. This is vital, okay? Back on April 2nd, part of the reason we really, people got so fearful so quickly, people were caught off guard, is because this was not like a trade war launched against one country. It was a trade war launched against everything, like everyone and everywhere, from Thailand to India to Canada to Mexico to Europe to China, right? The list goes on and on. Well, right now, again, it seems like everywhere else is just fine. Negotiations are going as planned, but not with China. So China is the most important single country. I don't think we could get by with a trade embargo with China without pain, like Trump says, without some kind of recession. Here's the tricky part. On November 1st, if a trade embargo starts, that doesn't mean you're going to have a recession. What it means is the stopwatch is starting to tick, okay? The question would be, does a month give us a recession? Does 3 months give us a recession? Does 6 months give us a recession? I think once you get after the 3-month period, the odds of a recession really start to skyrocket, okay? The fact of the matter is, our economies are way too interconnected to just cut off trade with a 2-week notice without there being disruptions, okay? You can bet your ass Walmart, Target, all your retailers right now are, as we speak, scrambling to place orders from China. There's going to be a pull forward of ordering, kind of like what we seen the first time around. But after that, those products are sold and off the shelves, it becomes a much larger problem. So you probably have about 3 months, maybe 2 months, maybe a month and a half on aggregate, on average, until it becomes a big problem again. Now, again, good news is it's only with China. We don't have, other issues happening elsewhere. So it's a little different, but again, the point remains the same. November 1st, even if these tariffs go into effect, it doesn't mean a recession is guaranteed. It means the stop clock starts, and every day that goes forward, the odds of a recession go higher. So are we just immediately going to fall 20% like we did on April 2nd? Probably not. It's going to be volatile. We're going to be subject to changes in the headlines. But the longer it goes, the worse it gets. Now, in the next video, we will be going over specifically my thoughts this week on Tesla stock and on broader markets, economic data and earnings, everything you need to know for this upcoming week. But now we must get into your Tesla stock news, so at least you're familiar with the latest developments for Tesla specifically to start off this new trading week. Keep in mind, Tesla was down 5% in regular trading on Friday, down another 1.3% in after hours on Friday. The stock broke down a bit, again, with the kind of news that we got, with tensions ratcheting up. You could even say recession odds that are soon going to go up. It's honestly, it could have been a lot worse. So it wasn't nearly as bad as what it could have been. So first things first, the 2026 Model 3 premium production has started at Tesla's Fremont factory. The Model 3 Premium includes all black logos, a turn signal stalk, and the front bumper camera with a washer. Tesla also, late last night, released FSD V14.1.1, which so far seems quite comprehensive. They added arrival options for you to select where FSD should park. They added handling to pull over or yield for emergency vehicles. They added navigation and routing into the vision-based neural network. Added additional speed profiles, improved handling for static and dynamic gates, improved offsetting for road debris, improved handling for several scenarios, including unprotected turns, lane changes, vehicle cut-ins, and school buses, improved FSD's ability to manage system faults, recover smoothly from degraded operation for enhanced reliability. Quite an update for FSD V14, which, just came out not long ago. Now, also in the news today, Giga Berlin produced Model Y Standard has been released, and what people say is it looks competitive as far as pricing is concerned with other similar vehicles in the European market. The earliest date for Megapacks currently available to order on Tesla's website is Q3 of 2026. That is wild. While Tesla's Megapack distribution supply capability continues to grow, demand is even larger. So, yeah, that's kind of wild. Q3? You're talking a year at least to get your hands on a Megapack? Business is booming. Also, big news today, Tesla's FSD is undergoing testing at Japan's Land, Infrastructure, and Transport Ministry. So this could be a sign that maybe FSD is getting closer and closer to launching in Japan. As you know, Waymo is going to be launching in Japan in 2026 in Tokyo. So, what's to stop FSD as well? I mean, FSD seems to be superior in most regards to Waymo already. Tom Nash on X says, you can argue about Tesla's valuation all day, but if they crack full autonomy first, every price target under $1,000 becomes obsolete. And also in the news, Tesla's price target was lifted to $483 by Stifel on full self-driving optimism. This is some recent news that some people missed. Even on Friday, I believe it was TD Cohen's raised their price target to $500 on Tesla stock. You continue to see good news coming out, but unfortunately, when you have an ongoing trade war with China, none of what Tesla does is even going to matter unless there is crazy big news. It's just the downward pressure on some of these headlines we're getting from China and from Trump is just too strong for, any single stock to handle. Like, stocks are going to sell off for no reason, no company specific reason, in a market like this. Now, in option activity on Friday for Tesla, it was actually pretty good considering the stock was down 5%. Hedge funds and institutions, in the interesting flow sentiment here, conducted 296 different trades totaling $167.5 million with a positive order value of 61%. So considering the stock was down 5% on some of the headlines that we got, you still had a more positive order value than negative. 61% positive, 49% negative. I'll take those kind of numbers any day with the headlines that we got. That is a great sign for Tesla. And honestly, I still think news on Robotaxi is probably coming soon. Robotaxi has been way too quiet. We haven't heard any new developments on that. And I think something is cooking. Okay, now, when does that come out? How does that affect the stock? All of those are obviously to be determined kind of, questions. But I do think something is cooking. Now, short interest of free float has recently fallen a little bit from about 3% down to 2.74%. You do have about 77 million shares sold short. The dollar amount sold short at $33.5 billion. And about 707,000 shares on Friday that were covered on. So short sellers were covering to some degree on Friday, which shows, if hedge funds and institutions were short in Tesla in the 450s, 460s, some of these higher levels, and they just got an opportunity to cover in the low 400s, a lot of them jumped on it. And now from a technical perspective, really, you should have some support around about 402. If you break below 402, you start to get into the level of September 12th and September 11th. September 11th, you went up 6%, and September 12th, you went up about 7.5%. That broke us out of our previous range that was anywhere from like 360 to the lower side of about 300, right? You were kind of in this range for a while, creeping higher. You finally got that extended breakout, okay? So you got a lot more buyers in this range that stepped in. You almost gapped up, although it wasn't a gap up because it was 2 days, not just 1 day. It was basically like a gap up, okay? Now, around 402, you should have a lot of support, okay? The stock is currently at about 408. But given the headlines we're hearing, I'm sure Trump is not going to back down. I'm expecting some headlines before markets open tomorrow that don't sound great, and that could push Tesla, below the 400s, back into the 300s. But I don't think it's going to last, okay? I don't think Trump wants a recession. I don't think Trump wants the pain that he talked about. I don't know what Trump's off ramp is going to be. Again, maybe it's a call with him and China's president. Maybe they just need to have a phone call, something, right? But once you start to get the signs that things are turning and getting better, you're going to see Tesla react violently to the upside, in my opinion. But we'll talk more specifically about Tesla and my thoughts and expectations in the video that comes out at 8 p.m. today. We're also going to be going over earnings and this week and economic data that we will be getting. So hit the like button. We also have a speech from Fed Jerome Powell. That could be interesting. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Check that link out down below in the description of this video to come join us in the trading group. With that said, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.